This is for question one. So despite the instances of inequality, exploitation, and misconduct usually found in sports, they still continue to be widely regarded as good socially due to their profound social, economic, and psychological benefits. Sports foster community and belonging and often bridge social divides and bonding through the shared experiences found in sports, like national and international competitions, too. Additionally, participation in sports contribute to physical and mental well-being and health benefits, usually reducing health risks while enhancing self-esteem and resilience, which is especially important in young people. Beyond personal benefits, sports can also provide educational and economic opportunities, particularly for the marginalized populations who gain access to scholarships, professional careers, and other economic mobility. The media and institutional endorsements found in sports also further support the positive perception of sports by emphasizing stuff like perseverance, heroism, and success, while also downplaying systemic issues at the same time. Most notably, though, sports function as both entertainment and as well as emotional engagement, like foster emotional engagement, with providing instances of escapism and also inspiration to some. It can be used for both. While also acknowledging the ethical challenges within the sports industry, its capacity to cultivate discipline and use teamwork and social unity ensures that it remains a powerful and largely positive force within society. As for question two, as discussed in class, negative socialization effects and or experiences are often experienced when playing sports constricts or limits a person's identity, relationship, and other experiences, whereas positive socialization provides opportunities to explore and develop non-sport identities, knowledge building experiences that go beyond the locker room or other sports facilities, new relationships with people who aren't typically connected with sports or found around sports, and also opportunities to develop and display competence in non-sport activities and become linked with other mentors or networking advocates in the process. When comparing negative and positive sport experiences, there are a few common themes. So the first one is agency and structure. Both positive and negative experience highlight the tension between individuality and other structural forces. While individuals can find personal empowerment through sports, usually they find constraints by larger social structures like gender norms and economic barriers. Number two is social capital. Positive experience builds social capital. Which can help create networks and connections that benefit individuals and communities as a whole. However, in contrast, negative experiences can impede on trust and other cohesion, particularly if sports becomes a site of exclusion, discrimination, or exploitation. Number three is cultural narratives. Sports can both challenge and reinforce dominant cultural ideations. So while they can promote individualism, inclusivity, and resilience, they can also create and support harmful ideologies like masculinity, competition, or the commodification of bodies or stereotypes. Yeah. This is for question number three. So in my personal opinion, I believe the statement for activity to be considered a sport, it must be competitive. I believe that statement to be true. In the first few lectures, we discussed the overall definition of sport. Despite there not being a concrete definition, it does differ between the cultures. As defined in class, we talked about how Westerners see sport as a display of a complex skill and or physical activity. The concept of play versus dramatic spectacle was discussed, that sports contain play and dramatic spectacle events, and that the athletes are then motivated by external and internal rewards. So the larger and the most common reward being competition and the fulfillment received from that. In class, we also talked about activities like yoga or karate and how they are classified as a sport, yet they don't contain any direct competition or opponent or nothing. In my argument, however, when we discuss yoga and karate, for example, they still include, in my opinion, a competitive component. Not with an actual opponent per se, but more with the objective and external reward that the individual receives from the sport being the competition, if that makes sense. Whether that be self-improvement or say maybe you want to lose 10 pounds and that's your competition, you're in competition with yourself to achieve that external goal. or maybe the activity, like say karate uses like a ranking system that you are constantly competing against yourself, like from a lower, like, oh, I'm trying to compete to get to the next level, even though it's not against it, like from a yellow belt to a black belt. Like I'm not going against anyone directly, but there's still a competitive aspect to it. Like I'm trying to get to the next stage. The same can be argued that to be classified as a sport, it has to contain physical activity. An example we also brought up in class was chess, and how despite there being no physical component, most people would still consider that a sport. Why? Mostly because it's a demonstration of a complex skill and is still like competitive because it's often played against an opponent. Again, my opinion is that if something is classified as a sport, then there is always type of conscious or subconscious, direct or indirect competitiveness to it, whether we like to admit it or not. Maybe if you just try to get technical about it, like, and unpack it, you'll always find a little bit of competitiveness, I like to think. So, yes, I believe that for an activity to be considered a sport, it must be competitive. This is for question 4. To define performance ethic, it refers to emphasizing measured outcomes as indicators of the quality of sport experiences. So we talked about fun equals becoming better. Emphasizing the private programs is often related to parental notions of investing into their children's future, stuff like that. The growing emphasis on the performance ethic of youth sports does, like, it's argued if it does have a negative impact as it prioritizes winning over like skill development. Also like against the enjoyment of sport, like growth, if that makes sense. This also like this type of approach to sport leads to high dropout rates, anxiety, and physical burnout, which ultimately should be avoided, especially when it does come to children. Early specialization in high competition sports or stuff like that do increase the risk of injury, especially and most notably concussion, which can be detrimental and have lasting complications over time. Expensive training programs exclude lower income athletes, which further limit opportunities for the diverse populations. Performance ethics is more emphasized in, like I said earlier, private programs. Generally, overall, by valuing results over holistic development, performance ethic undermines the social and psychological benefits of youth sport, highlighting the need for a more balanced and inclusive approach in all sports, but especially youth sports.